So our second speaker today is Gabriel, Vice President of Academic and Research Relations at Elsevier. Anne's been at Elsevier for some time in a number of different capacities. In her current role, she focuses on establishing partnerships with academia, government funding bodies, and industry, as well as exploring evolving issues such as open science and data. And I also want to say a special thanks to Anne for helping to organize and invite some of our other panelists and participants for this afternoon.
Okay, so first of all, a big thank you to everyone who's brought this event about, and that includes Kevin Coy, who is our Director of Bids, and certainly our faculty sponsor, Saul Perlmutter, and Justin Kitzes, who's really worked hard in bringing this event together. And we've been talking about this for a couple months, and I said I wanted to come and talk about open science, and they're like, okay, but it can't just be Elsevier. So I said, great, let's invite everybody and have that discussion. So I took our mandate fairly seriously. We were asked to talk about some of the current initiatives that we have going on in the areas of open science, and also what we think of our future perspectives in that area. And by the end of this panel, hopefully you will come away with the idea that open science is not just one thing, but many things. And we see several components of it, including open access, open data, the ability to connect science to society, and also collaboration. There are implications for open science on peer review, and I think Jeffrey just touched on that in terms of tenure evaluation and what we can do to make that a more streamlined process. And finally, metrics that look at evaluation of science and how to make these more open. So I'll dive right in, but first I wanted to start with a cartoon, which was in last week's New Yorker, and I loved this cartoon. Even though it's fairly retro, it made me laugh because I've been in publishing a long time. And this is probably fairly timely for the New Yorker, not so timely for those of us in scientific publishing, whereby the print to electronic migration accelerated 15, 20 years ago. We've successfully made that leap. But I remember that face at the beginning, like we were those people. And we've utterly transformed our content. And I always ask people, including some of our editors, when was the last time you looked at a textbook or a journal article online, and not just kind of scrapped for the PDF, finding it on Google and getting to it on some server, but really looked at the platforms that publishers are building. And we've done fabulous things with video and software and code that I'll talk about a little bit more, because all of this kind of interactivity has a role to play in open science. There's a lot of pressures driving these changes, and some of the influences include the changing functions of journal and peer review, channels of dissemination. I won't go through the entire list given the time, but data is the next frontier in terms of making science open and working collaboratively. And science in the public, I think I've already mentioned that. We as publishers can't do all this alone. These influences offer us opportunities to collaborate with leading academic institutions, as well as other key stakeholders in the system, including citizen science and policymakers. We are rapidly moving away from what is essentially a transactional relationship with the library and working more closely with our authors. So what is open science? We've taken a stab at giving a definition: the shared vision of an open environment with a culture of sharing, driven by the use of new technology which will fuel better collaborations, more efficient researcher workflows, and the embedding of science into the wider society, ultimately enhancing the quality of science through sustainable models. We hope to have this solved by the end of this afternoon. So the elements of it include the thing that just scrolled across the bottom: open access, open data, connecting to society, collaboration, peer review, and metrics. So let's talk a little bit about open access, because Jeffrey's right. The big news last week here was the expansion of the UC open access policy to extend to all of UC campuses and all of your employees. And publishers have an obligation to set up the correct distribution channels for this type of content. And I've been talking about Elsevier and open access quite a lot recently, and I was just at Harvard talking to some people, and somebody said, I never thought I would see Elsevier and open access on the same slide. And for those of you who don't know, we have a big ship, but we're turning it slowly to meet the demands of our communities. And we now publish more than 300 gold open access journals. We have more than 1,600 hybrid journals, which is a subscription journal that allows an open access option. And all of our journals offer green OA options. Given the time, I won't go into the differences between gold and green, but just know that we're there. We're doing it, and there's lots of flavors of it. We can talk a little bit about the article growth by journal business model. And what you see here is that subscription content is still growing at between 1% and 4%. And my role prior to this one was as a publishing director. I can absolutely assure you that in my areas that I ran, computer science and engineering, that content was growing closer to 9%. And that did not include some of the OA content that is growing at between 12 and 24% per year. So you see an environment where everything is being published in one form or another. I'm not sure that that's good or bad, and there's discussions to be had about how to maintain quality in this environment, because as you all know, there are directories of predatory open access journals, and as authors and researchers, we have to be careful, and this is where we can help guide that process. Open access has implications for our platforms. I won't spend too much time on this, but you should know that we now have really revamped our interfaces to clearly indicate what content is open access on our platforms. Funding body information is also clearly shown. We have RSS feeds set up for open access content. Everything is clearly labeled. You can filter and refine result sets, and clear labels allow you to filter those result sets. What else? In the spirit of pan-publisher collaboration and linking and making information about open access available, Elsevier is a founding partner in Chorus, which stands for Clearinghouse for the Open Research of the United States. And what this is a collaboration between publishers and funding bodies and an organization called FundRef, which will allow users to search on federally funded research and access that content on the publisher platforms, which hold both a preprint and a version of record, thereby making federally funded research open to folks, which is a very important thing. Next up is my favorite slide in the whole presentation, which is innovative publishing that we are doing in open access, which is creating small micro articles around various content types, including methods and genomics data and other forms of data, also video formats, which allow authors to write a small description around that type of content and then link to the method or the data or the software as part of that, and that is all open. And that's a very important driver for bringing forward open science. One of the videos is GI endoscopy. I urge you to check it out. It might be more information than a lot of you can handle, but it's really quite something. So let's talk about open data, which I think is really critical to this. Justin, how am I doing on time? Whoa. Okay, so let's just look at these upward hours. More data is being cited than ever before. This is the first one is a paper that was done on Thomson Insights, which shows how much data has been put in their repository. And the second is a study on usage of life science data repositories, which has also grown exponentially. However, the data storage is very, very fragmented. A lot of people are still storing this on computers at work, on their desktop, and there is a need for standards and for collaboration to make these data repositories stronger. And there are a lot of players in this space. We have to look at best practices for storing this data, ensuring that it is accessible, citable, and reusable. There are many ways in which we're supporting open data. We have a data linking program. We link to more than 40 repositories as part of our journal articles. For example, all of our geophysical journals are linked out to the Pangaea database. So if you're looking at something there, you can find it on the database. And you can see where nearly 22% of our articles now have data with supplementary materials, and 5% of our articles actually are linking out to those database sets. Data visualization, we have lots of cool tools, including in-article tools for 3D brain imagery. We also have something called iPlots, which is interactive plots. If any of your researchers know the pain of going to a graph in an article and then trying to transcribe the data and make it work, you can actually just click on the link. The author has supplied the data, and you can manipulate it from within the article. We offer authors the opportunity to submit open data in connection with subscribed articles, and we're also piloting something called a data profile, which increases trust. Further to my earlier favorite slide, I just wanted to mention a new journal called Software X, which is that same micro-article format where we have a partnership with GitHub. Our publisher who started that, Eleonora Persani, she's somewhere in the audience, but this is absolutely fantastic, which enables researchers to open up their code to others. And this is growing. I won't go into the chart, but you can see the upward arrows. We're also allowing data storage on our Mendeley data repository, and we found that our end users want the ability to search across data sets, not just journal articles. So we have pilots there as well. So lots going on, and we are members of standards bodies and working groups as well. So I'm just going to accelerate quickly through connecting to society. We have a number of initiatives. I'll just touch on STM Digest, which is lay summaries of research that we are working on in collaboration with early career researchers to summarize for the general public. Because I think a lot of this debate about what should be open concerns what's understandable to which audience at what level. Just making all of the highly technical content open isn't satisfying every need, and we have to close that gap. We have very specific journal programs, and I will just call out something that we're doing here that was started by people at Berkeley. Is Sarah White here in the audience? Sarah, you came. So Sarah is helping us with the Journal of Development Engineering, which was started by Ashok Gadgil and Paul Gertler here at UC Berkeley. And this is a journal that is funding travel grants to people in developing countries to help them facilitate their work getting published. And Elsevier regularly works with other institutions to make content available freely there to close any access gaps as part of the Research for Life program, the Library for Agricultural, and also we have a program called Publishers Without Borders, where we go into countries like Tanzania, for example, and work with academics there. Linking and ShareLink, all of our authors have a free link to their article for 50 days to send to whoever they like, the press, colleagues, whatever, and their article is freely available if they haven't chosen already to publish in an open access way. And finally, just touching on Jeffrey's point about educating researchers in the fact that there's going to be initiatives like this at Berkeley to publish in more open ways, we also see the need to educate early career researchers about their options. And we have a number of services through our publishing campus about what is open science and navigating the journal landscape. These are all free, and we also go out to campuses and regularly host seminars and work on educating those audiences. I'm going to skip through collaboration. Sorry about that. I'll skip through peer review because that's more technical. I'll just mention metrics. We have Altmetrics, which is another way of looking at open science. And this shows how, I'm sorry, I'm missing a slide, but this shows authors where their data is cited on services like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. So they can monitor the impact of their work apart from the usual metrics like impact factor. And Elsevier recently acquired a company called Newsflow, which will further help feed that metrics stream. And we also prepare open research metric reports. And I'll just share something that I was involved in very recently. We prepared a report on sustainability science in the global landscape in conjunction with the United Nations and announcement of the Sustainable Development Goals earlier in September, where we looked at the entire landscape of sustainability research mapped along a paradigm of those SDGs. And this is of great interest to policymakers and institutions throughout the world because it shows how institutes are collaborating with one another. And these are metrics that we can bring about in part because we have the scale to do so. So, future perspectives. Maybe I'll end with this slide. But I was looking at the 2015 top tech trends in STM, and I think food for thought for the rest of the day is looking at data as a first-class research object, which means it must be made discoverable, made accessible, and it has to be curated and preserved. And there is a role, I think, that publishers play strongly in that ecosystem. Reputation management is of increasing importance as scientists, again, look to become more visible in the area of these tenure models. And then finally, the article as a hub in a spoke model. So the article as a hub for data and metrics and citizen science and reaching out to bring all of those threads together. So these are some ways in which Elsevier is looking at open science. I hope it provokes food for thought later today. Hope it wasn't too much too fast, but thank you.